Hi, I'm Brittany Gillespie, an ensemble member at Stage Left Theater, and I'm here today to have a conversation with our artistic director, James Yost. How's it going?
It's going really well. Thank you, Brittany, and thank you for taking the time to sit down and talk to me about Stage Left.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I bet everyone is curious, but how did you initially get the theater bug?
That's a really good question. I think everybody has that bitten by the theater bug story, and I was a English major in college, and then took a theater class and really loved it, and started out as an actor, and thought that that's what I wanted to do, was be an actor. And then I had to do a directing project, and I directed a play and really loved directing even more. I felt like I was better suited for that. I felt like I was, I enjoyed analyzing the script and giving actors ideas and talking through the vision and sort of having, I guess, control. I mean, every director is sort of a control freak to some extent. And I just found that there were so many actors that were better than me and could be, were better storytellers. And so I just found it was easier to collaborate that way. And then, so I really started pursuing directing more. I still acted, but I really found that directing was something I enjoyed a lot more than acting. And it's harder as a director. You can't audition to get directing jobs. Your work has to kind of speak for itself, and you kind of have to work through the ranks. Whereas as an actor, you can go into an audition, get cast, and then that role can sort of change your trajectory. It's a little different for directors. So it was a little harder of a trajectory. But after I graduated, I started a theater company in North Carolina called Bare Bones Theater, and it was like sort of a the whole premise was like producing plays that were very minimal, no set, it's really like actor audience storytelling. And I found that was a challenge too, because it's like, how do you tell this great story, or how do you put this great play on the stage with limited set, limited lighting, limited props? And that challenge, I think, helped me become a better director. And then from there, I served as artistic director for Bare Bones for about 13 years. And then I moved to Chicago, and I did some freelance directing, worked with Ontario Bank Theater Project for a number of years, directed for a couple of other companies, and then connected with Stage Left. And since becoming an artistic director, I haven't really had an opportunity to direct for a number of reasons. One, we're kind of in a period of redefining ourselves, and also the coronavirus is sort of keeping all arts at bay right now. So here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And since you started to bring up, COVID-19 times, how does it feel to now become like a new artistic director to the company in the midst of all this? Do you see that there are new plus challenges, that ways we can see some redefining the art form of theater? Or what challenges are we facing, or you particularly?
Well, I think being an artist you need to have an audience for it to be art. You can't do it in a vacuum and then not have people see it. And right now, people are not doing anything. They're all, although the city is opening back up slowly, I think that people are still tentative to do anything that would require them to congregate. And so the challenge of being a theater artist right now is how do you do your work for an audience digitally, or how do you do your work for an audience at a distance? And both of those things are really, really challenging. I think that a lot of theaters, including Stage Left, are going to have to look at more digital options. How can we do things online? How can we have people come see the work that we're doing through a digital forum, whether that's a recorded production, whether that's a Zoom performance? It's not the best, because theater is live. That's what it is by definition. I mean, you're sitting in a room and sharing an experience with other people, including the people on the stage telling the story, and that takes that element away, which in some ways waters it down a little bit. It's not going to be the same experience. So Yeah, it's a challenging time. I mean, I don't know when we're going to be able to go back to the way things were, and if we can go back to the way things were, what that will mean for audiences and how many people can attend. Some of the bigger theaters who have big spaces, they're going to have the same problems. I mean, if your capacity is 200 and you can only have 75 people at any given time. So it's going to be really interesting to see where things go. Stage Left is in a really good situation because we are right at the precipice of discussing productions, and we were having conversations about producing in the fall. And that may or may not now in person on stage, but we're still pushing forward to figure out ways to bring art to the community through Zoom, through video. Videos of productions, and it's another hurdle that has to be overcome in order to sustain, particularly as a theater company. How long can you be away from your audience before they decide that they're going to go somewhere else to find their art? But it's not just us, it's everybody. It's across the board, it's across the world. So it's a big challenge, and I think that's one of the things that you got to kind of be creative about, but you also have to sort of understand what people are willing to do. Are they going to pay $20 to see a stream of your production? Are they going to buy into the technology part of it? It does really open a whole new door to, and might even create a new trend in how theater is delivered to audiences. So it'll be interesting to see. Ask me in 2 weeks and I'll have a better answer.
Absolutely, because everything is changing every day, every week, so quickly.
Yep. Yeah.
And one thing that I think part of Stage Left is that we do a ton of new play development. Do you think that there is actually a way of doing that really well virtually, like in terms of having like these more in person with smaller groups through Zoom conversations about just like the work itself and having time for the playwrights and actors to focus on a piece? Do you see some more potential with this?
Yeah, I think now is the best time to explore new play development because I think of new play development as being in phases. The first phase is primarily spent at a table with actors and artists and designers reading a play, talking about the play with the playwright in the room. And then the second phase is getting those people on their feet. And then the third phase is hopefully, some kind of a production, a public production. I think some of those things can be combined. I think what's cool about the technology is that, if Stage Left decides to look at developing a new play, which we are doing, inviting audiences in earlier, in those earlier phases to see, I think some people would be very interested in seeing how does a play start? Where does it start? It starts with an idea. It starts with a writer writing a scene, and then that scene turns into 2 scenes, and then it turns into an act. And then from there, it gets developed. And how much input do actors have? How much input do designers have? And I think with Zoom, it's nice to be able to sit in as an observer and see those things in development and see how one scene becomes a full-length play. And I think that's one thing that Stage Left is going to do for sure and can do. But I think it's something that a lot of theaters can do. This is actually a great time for playwrights to say, hey, I've got this thing sitting in a drawer that I'd like to read or hear. And I hope that more theaters do it. I think Stage Left certainly has a responsibility because we are a theater that has produced a number of world premieres and with Leap Fest and consistently, cultivating and nurturing playwrights and new work. So that's something that we're definitely going to do, and I think we can do with the technology that we have. The last piece of that phase is the public performance, and so that's the piece that's going to require a little more creativity, but again, isn't impossible. I think audiences really love having, the reason that I go to theater is because I want to have an experience with a group of people and connect with the artist telling the story. What's even better is having a conversation after that with those artists, with the director, with the playwright, to be able to have some conversation about what I just saw. And you can't do that when you go to a movie. You don't have the option of talking to Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks about what you just saw. And so, the community is the lifeblood of theater, the patrons and fans. And so I really want to include more people in that process that want to be, not to help necessarily direct the playwright or be prescriptive about the play, but to be able to say, wow, when that was a scene and now they're produced. So they feel a little more investment. And I think that's something that we can do. And I think that's something a lot of theaters can do, is connect with your community that way. And it's a lot simpler because a lot of it is spent around a table talking and having conversations. So
yeah, I think that's great to have these new ways of getting our community to be a part of our theater. And the transparency it kind of creates a little bit throughout the entire process, which is definitely something we haven't been able to accomplish very well just in theaters in Chicago that I have worked with.
Right.
So I think that's a really exciting opportunity there.
For sure.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about is what excites you the most about being the artistic director at Stage Left?
I think that every single artistic director at every single theater in the country and probably the world has a pretty big responsibility right now to take a long, hard look at the world we live in and process that and figure out how we as artists can respond. Good art is always a reflection of society. Whether it's fine arts, whether it's performing arts, it's always a reflection of what's going on in the world. And Stage Left has that same responsibility. We have a responsibility to our community, and we have a responsibility to tell not just one story, but every story. And that's challenging. How do you tell everyone's story? And I think that I say we as like the artists, the theater community as a whole, really need to look at what's going on in the world and what our responsibility is in helping to tell that story. And I'm excited about that, but it is kind of a challenge because I think the trends in theater are shifting. I think the expectations of theater are shifting. I think that what people expect in their theater experience is shifting. I think that what people expect from art in general is shifting, and it will continue to shift. And I think that there are groups that are underserved. There are people that feel underserved. I think there are people that feel that their story is not necessarily being told. And they're a part of our community. And we have to be conscious of that and be responsible in what we do. So I love that I have the ability to think about the community in those terms, to think outside of my own experiences and to say, okay, well, how can we bring other people into the mix who are going to help us tell that story in a responsible way? It's a lot. And I think a lot of theaters get that and they own that responsibility, and others don't. And I think that that's problematic. But artists are fiery, passionate people, and no one will be quicker to point out that you're doing it wrong than other artists. And I think that that's what's happening, and I think that needs to happen. I think that this responsibility more than ever is a pretty important one. So I know most people would probably say that sounds like a real challenge and something that would be incredibly frustrating. And it is. And I think for artists in general, that frustration comes in different forms. And I think that that's sort of when you're an artist and you're delivering an artistic product to the community, you're exposing yourself to that feedback. And that's the way it should be. You're producing work that is meant for people to pay for and see. They should have some stake in it, and they should have some ability to respond to that. And so I'm thinking about our audiences, and I'm also thinking about the larger theater community, and I'm also thinking about the larger Chicago community. And that's a lot. It's a lot to go into the mix. It's like a big salad that has to sort of be mixed together, and you want to make sure everything's in there.
Absolutely.
That was my salad analogy.
I'm loving it. But I think you're absolutely correct about like just keeping each other accountable. It's going to be a big part moving forward, and it's not a passive thing at all.
Right.
It's definitely going to be something that we have to keep moving on and focusing on.
Definitely.
Driving forward. Well, one thing that I've been really missing before we let you go is that without being in person, I really miss rehearsals, like in-person rehearsals, being around other artists and just getting that in-person sharing and community. What are you missing most about theater right now, personally?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a social aspect to theater. It's a very social thing. I think actors, designers, artists get very close during productions, and you spend a lot of time in the room with people, and you spend a lot of time in the room during tech, and you become, for all intents and purposes, a family for the time that you're working on that production, and sometimes even after that.
Absolutely.
So there's that social aspect, but I also think it's there's nothing better than seeing a production as an audience member. And when I go to theater, I obviously watch the show, but I also love to see how the audience responds to things. I like to see what they're responding to and how. And I'm personally one of those people that loves when people have very vocal reactions to things, like, oh my God, and oh, I can't believe that.
Oh, yeah.
I like that because they're in the moment and they're engaged in what's going on. And watching the audience is sometimes just as fun as watching the play, because you can sort of see the power of the story affecting the people that are seeing it. And I really value talkbacks. I really value post-show, like meet and greets, where the audience and the artists can mingle. I think that opportunity for the artists and the audience to intermingle and to have contact is important. Everybody on planet Earth has an opinion. Everybody has an opinion. And some people won't share it with you, and some people can't wait to share it with you. And I think that if you're doing theater and you're creating art and you're putting things on stage for public consumption, and you're refusing to listen to what your audience is saying, then you're not really completing what I would consider to be the task of the art, which is to get that response. If somebody comes up to me and says, wow, that was a really horrible production, it was really hard to sit through, it was intense and it was scary and it was uncomfortable, and I'm not sure why you did it, that's great, because that's why I did it. It was uncomfortable and it was scary and it was intense and you had a reaction to it. I would much rather somebody say that to me than, yeah, it's good. That actually hits me harder than somebody having a really visceral reaction. And I've had people tell me that. And I think that good theater and good art should grab you and shake you and make you feel something. And I miss that part, I guess, is this feeling of walking out of a production as an audience or as an artist and feeling that energy of like, wow, everybody just had an experience together. And we're not all feeling the same way about it, but we're definitely feeling something. We're feeling the feels. Absolutely.
No, I think that's great. And it's nice to hear that coming from you as we start, just looking at the future of stage left theater and getting back out there and getting back in touch with our audience and our community members. It's nice to hear that. Is there anything else about just basically the future of stage left that you haven't talked about or that you want to throw out there before we?
Yeah, I mean, stage left is in a really good place right now because we, and it's going to sound weird when you hear my answer, but we are at a good place because we were in production when everything kind of went south quickly. We have been rebranding and redeveloping and doing a lot of thinking about what direction we want to move in. And in the fall, our hope is to launch sort of a new stage left that continues to include in its storytelling the larger community, but also we're looking at doing new work, continuing to do new work. We're looking at some world premieres. We're looking at some plays that we can potentially put on stage in the spring. So there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and our goal is in the fall to have something ready for audience consumption, for community consumption, whether it's online digitally, which is probably what it will be, and then hopefully in the spring have a production that's in person on stage, and to continue to work towards, you know, again, having regular production seasons. So we're using this time to read plays, to consider plays, to talk to other artists in the community about what they feel is important, to help build our ensemble. One of the things that I would say, or one of the messages that I would want to send, is if you're an artist and you're a playwright and you're an actor and you're looking to connect with a theater, you know, to reach out to Stage Left to say, look, here's what I want to do. Here's what I like doing. Here's what I have done. And I'd like to get involved with Stage Left, because we're at that point where we want that. We want to be able to collaborate with more artists, more people, build our ensemble. And I think collaboration is the key. A theater cannot run with one person making all the decisions. It has to be the group, and everybody has to feel a stake and an investment. And that's how a theater becomes a home. Everybody feels like their voice is heard, and they're having some input into the direction. And that's what our goal is to continue to bring other voices into those decision-making processes.
That's great. And I thank you so much for talking with me through all of this. I personally, as an ensemble member, are so excited to have you here as an artistic leadership here in the company.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just excited about the future. Everything you've been talking about really gets me fired up as an artist, and I'm excited to see we know that we're deciding what's next. So I'm excited when we can be back out there in the public eye.
Yeah, we're coming. I think Stage Left, like a lot of theaters, are there's an excitement and it's almost like I can't think of the word, but like I think everybody's really chomping at the bit to get things going, and there's a lot of factors that make it difficult. And I think that I'll say that the technology, as frustrating as it is to have to watch theater online, I think that it's a good substitute. I personally enjoy the readings that we've been doing digitally, and I know a lot of other theaters have been doing a lot of digital readings. And if nothing else, it gets artists in the same place at the same time doing something creative. And I know a lot of theaters are doing that, but it's also helpful to sort of think about the plays that you're reading, but it's also helpful to sort of think about, well, how can we use this technology and bring in a larger audience? How can we bring more people into what we're doing? And that's going to be the big challenge, but I think it's not insurmountable.
No, I think it's a challenge that Stage Left Theater is ready for, and I think
totally.
So it's nice to have you at the helm, feeling that way to help lead us forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I personally, as an ensemble member, have been really enjoying these play readings we've been doing, just to connect with new artists, start building our community, and really just, getting Stage Left live again, getting us, active, and so I'm really excited. So thank you for taking the time to chat with me today, and we'll talk again more soon.
For sure. Thanks, Brittany.